Hello everyone, this is your educator Priyanka Thakur. I'm teaching you life sciences and welcome you all on our YouTube channel Guru Mantra Shiksha Ka Granth. Today in this video we are going to talk about translation, and this is the part 2. We already have discussed the part 1 in which I told you about the initiation of translation, all about all the transcription initiator actually initiating factors which are required for the initiation of translation. We also got to know about the charging of tRNA, and to know about mRNA, rRNA and tRNA you can refer another video in the playlist where you can see the types of RNA. And let's talk about the elongation of a translation. Okay, we have already discussed the initiation part in the part 1. So what happens during elongation? See, translation elongation simply means ribosome will travel along the mRNA. It will read out the codons on mRNA, and then after reading the codons, it will bring in appropriate amino acyl tRNA. This amino acylated tRNA, I mean charged tRNA, will be translating the message of mRNA, message that is written on mRNA into proteins. So elongation rate in E. coli is about 15 amino acids per second. How many? 15 amino acid per second. There are three main stages in elongation during translation. See, decoding, transpeptidation and translocation. Okay, just revise them again. Decoding, transpeptidation and translocation. First one is decoding. What happens during decoding? Ribosome will select and they will bind to an appropriate amino acyl tRNA. Actually, they will first read out the code and mRNA. Then, according to that code, they will select an appropriate charged tRNA. That charged tRNA will have a complementary anticodon, which actually an anticodon which will be complementary to that of mRNA on the A site. Okay, so if decoding is done, ribosome read out the codon on mRNA. It calls out an appropriate tRNA which is having an anticodon which is complementary to our mRNA. Now this amino acylated tRNA is placed on the A site. Then transpeptidation will occur. See, we have already studied about initiation, and we know that first charged tRNA enter to the P site and not A site. Once initiation has been occurred, then all the other amino acid tRNA will enter the A site and not the P site now. Clear? Okay. See, amino acylated tRNA will enter the A site now, and during transpeptidation there will be the transfer of amino acid residue or a peptide residue from one amino acid compound to the another. We will see the transfer of peptidyl group which is present on the P site, because we have many amino acid on the P site attached to the peptide bond. So we will have a peptidyl group on the P site but amino acyl group on the A site. So this peptidyl group will be transferred to the amino acyl group on the A site through the formation of peptide bond during transpeptidation. What happens during translocation? During translocation, there is the process. Now there will be the advances. Okay, it is the process that advances the mRNA tRNA moiety on the ribosome to allow the next codon to move into the decoding center. Actually, A site of tRNA is transferred to P site. P site of tRNA is transferred to E site. Exactly what happens after A site, after the transfer of peptidyl group from the P site to the A site actually becomes P site now, and P site actually become E site now, because the tRNA which was present on the P site, it donated, it transferred its peptidyl group to the A site. It is not acetylated anymore. It is not having any amino acid anymore. It is now deacetylated. So it is now E site. Let me show you an image. See, this is the mRNA molecule. This is our large subunit of ribosome, smaller subunit of ribosome. This is the charged tRNA, amino-acylated tRNA, and here we are having deacetylated tRNA. So what happens during decoding? We know that during decoding, ribosome will be reading out the codon on the mRNA, and then it will bring an appropriate tRNA which will have the anticodon complementary to the codon present on the mRNA. Fine. And then there will be the binding of this tRNA, charged tRNA molecule, amino acid tRNA molecule on the A site. And after decoding has been done, tRNA has been placed to the A site, there will be the transpeptidation. The P site will transfer its peptidyl group to the A site. And this P site will become E site. The tRNA present here is deacetylated. Now it will be exiting now. This will become E site. This A site will become P site. And this further codons will be acting as A site. Now, this A site will become P site. This A site you are seeing, which will be P site, then will become E site, and further these codon will be acting as A codon. That's how translocation will occur. So this is decoding, transpeptidation, and translocation during the protein synthesis. But thing is that this whole process requires some elongation factors. Elongation cannot be done without the help of the elongation factor. There is the requirement of elongation factor. Decoding need elongation factor. Translocation need elongation factors. So let's talk about the elongation factors first. Elongation factor thermo-unstable, also known as elongation factor 1A. It is a GTPase. Exactly, it is a GTPase. In lecture 1, I told you initiation factor 2, prokaryotic initiation factor 2 is also a GTPase. This elongation factor 2, even eukaryotic initiation factor 2 is also a GTPase. Okay, this elongation factor 2 TU, which is thermo-unstable, okay, is going to select. Okay, we know that ribosome will select the correct tRNA and help it to the binding of this tRNA to the A site. But exactly this is elongation factor 2 which will be responsible, which will be facilitating the selection and the binding of amino acid tRNA to the A site of the ribosome. Fine. Now elongation factor TS, which is thermo-unstable, we just know that elongation factor thermo-unstable is a GTPase. Okay, so in GTP bound state, it will be active and will be able to bind with the amino acid tRNA, and then it will place the amino acid tRNA to the A site. But during that process, there will be the hydrolysis of GTP, and this elongation factor TU will bound to GDP now. So in GDP state, it will be inactive and it no longer be able to bind with the appropriate amino acid tRNA. So it needs for its activation, there is the need of removal of guanosine diphosphate. So here comes the elongation factor thermostable. It serves as the guanine nucleotide exchange factor for elongation factor thermo-unstable. It actually catalyzes the guanosine diphosphate. It catalyzes the release of guanosine diphosphate from elongation factor thermo-unstable, and now the elongation factor thermo-unstable is able to bind with the GTP molecule. It become activated after the activation of elongation factor TU. There is no role of elongation factor TS now. Now the elongation factor will be released out, and elongation factor TU is now available to catalyze another amino acyl tRNA addition. I hope you understand it and you are not having any problem. If you are having any problem, you can comment down in the comment box. Okay, I want your all the support in each and every video. I tell you to support, but you are not supporting. In fact, you are just not watching. You are ignoring the videos day by day. Okay, so elongation factor G, also known as elongation factor 2. This is the only factor which will have different functions. It will function in two different phases during protein synthesis. It will be playing an important role in the translocation. It is also known as translocase, and it will also be involved in the disassembly, dissociation of ribosomal subunit during after termination. After termination, there is no requirement of the association of subunits. Okay, so subunits will be dissociated, and translocase, I mean elongation factor G, is going to play its role during the disassembly of ribosomes. So let's start it. Let's know about the process of polypeptide chain elongation on a ribosome. You already know everything now. See, elongation factor thermo unstable. It will allow the amino acyl tRNA to enter a site. Now its binding required GTP. So there will be the binding of elongation factor TU with GTP and then to tRNA. So this will form a ternary complex. Elongation factor TU, GTP and tRNA. It will form a ternary complex. Fine. So the binding of tRNA to a site will be drove by hydrolysis of GTP, and after hydrolysis of GTP there will be elongation factor TUGDP, and it will be released out after leaving a new amino acyl tRNA in the A site. This release of EFTU-GDP, now elongation factor TU-GDP, it has been released now, but it requires regeneration. EFTU needs to be regenerated in order to get bind to another amino acyl tRNA and to place that particular tRNA on the A site. So now we require elongation factor TS, which will be a guanosine nucleotide exchange factor, and it will remove the GDP. It will catalyze the release of GDP from EFTU GDP complex, and now EFTU will be able to bind with another GTP. But tyrosine, it can inhibit the function of elongation factor TU. If elongation factor TU's function is inhibited, it no longer will be able to select an appropriate amino acylated tRNA and to bind with it and to bring it to the A site. So if there is no binding of amino acylated or charged tRNA to the A site, there will be no protein synthesis anymore. Okay. So once the amino acylated tRNA is added to the A site, see, we know that we are knowing about the elongation and not the initiation. During initiation, I told you that first amino acylated tRNA binds to the P site and not to the A site, but now P site is already booked. It is already having the amino acylated tRNA, even the peptidyl group. But now the amino acylated tRNA will be added to the A site. Here comes the function of peptidyl transferase. Peptidyl transferase function does not require any kind of energy. It doesn't require any energy, but it catalyzes the reaction. It catalyzes the peptidyl transferase reaction, which involves the formation of peptide bond between amino acids of P site and amino acids of A site. So what happens during this reaction? The amino acylated tRNA amino group attacks on the carbonyl group of the ester linkage of peptidyl tRNA. Peptidyl tRNA have ester linkage, and in ester linkage is a carbonyl group. Amino group of amino acylated tRNA will be attacking on this carbonyl group. After the attack, there is a formation of tetrahedral intermediate. This intermediate collapses soon and peptide bond is formed in between the amino acid of P site and T site and deacetylated tRNA. Actually, the whole peptidyl group from the P site is now transferred to the A site, and the deacetylated tRNA is removed now. It will exit through the exit site. During peptide bond formation, the O to N migration, there is O to N migration, and an ester bond is converted to an amide bond. Okay, and this is here the structure you can see. This is the amino acylated tRNA on the A side. This is the peptidyl group on the P side. This amino group of this amino acylated tRNA on the A side will attack on the carbonyl group, and here is the formation of tetrahedral. As you can see, carbon tetrahedral intermediate. Soon it will be collapsed, and there is the formation of peptide bond, and this A site will become P site now, and you can see on P site there is no more acetylated tRNA, it is deacetylated, and now P site will become E site. Now this tRNA will exit now. Okay, this is a peptidyl transferase reaction. Okay, great. So let's talk about how many sites will be there for amino acid tRNA. There is 3 amino acylated tRNA binding site: A site, P site, and E site. Not A site, it is E site. And you also know that amino acylated tRNA in the A site move to the P site in 5' to 3' direction, and the tRNA present on the P site actually exit through the E site. This is what we call translocation. Okay, okay, great. So you understand? Not having any problem? If you are having any problem, you can tell me. Okay, okay. So let's talk about termination now. We completed our initiation, elongation, and termination. So let's talk about what we have to talk about. What? Termination finally. Clear? So okay. So protein termination, we know that there are 3 stop codon: ochre, amber, and opal. UAA, UAG, and UGA. UAA, UAG, and UGA. Clear? UAA, UGA, and UAG and UGA. Now, on the A side, tRNA won't enter, but a release factor will enter there. Okay, what will enter there? A release factor will be entering on A site. In eubacteria, there is release factor 1, 2, and 3. The release factor 1 recognizes the termination codon UAA and UAG. Means ochre and amber, and release factor 2 recognizes ochre and opal. Release factor 3 does not recognizes any of the codon, but it helps in the release of dissociation of release factor 1 and 2 from the ribosome after termination. In case of eukaryote, there is only one release factor. There is only one release factor. There is eukaryotic release factor 1, which is able to recognize all 3 codons, and it also recognizes a eukaryotic release factor 3. We exactly don't know the function of eukaryotic release factor 3. It is yet unknown. There is also ribosomal recycling factor, which is responsible for the dissociation of ribosomal subunit. In eukaryotes, ribosomal subunits will be dissociated by ribosomal recycling factors. This factor will enter the A site and the P site. Okay. This sector will enter the A site and P site, and it will unlock the ribosome. For the dissociation of ribosome requires energy, which will be provided by elongation factor G, okay, by releasing GTP. And once the 2 subunit has been deassociated, in first lecture I told you that initiation factor 3 does not allow the 2 subunits to get together. So in initiation factor 3 will further prevent the deassociation of subunits. Clear? Okay. So here is the translation energetics. We require 2 ATP for the charging of tRNA. Actually 2 ATP equivalent. During charging of tRNA, I told you that ATP will be converted into the AMP. Okay, so if one hydro energy bond is there, if ATP is converted to ADP, it is 2. If ATP is converted into AMP. So 2 ATP equivalents are required for the charging of tRNA, one for the initiation. Peptide bond formation does not require any peptidyl transferase reaction does not require any energy, but as you know, the EFTU GTP hydrolysis do require energy. So for N-1, N stands for number of amino acids. For N-1 peptide bond, there will be the requirement of N-1 GTP. During translocation, there will be the requirement of N-1 GTP for N-1 translocation, and 1 GTP will be required for the termination, and you know why and why not. Clear? Okay. So, okay, let's check it out here now. For example, for the synthesis of 10 amino acid residues, 40 ATPs are required. How many? 40 ATPs are required. 20 ATPs for charging of tRNA, 1 GTP for initiation, 10 amino acid will be generated in the synthesized in the one go only, one translation process. Okay, 1 GTP for the initiation, n minus 1, it means 9 GTPs for EFGTU hydrolysis, 9 GTPs for the translocation, and then 1 GTP for translation, it becomes 40s. And we now got to know for one amino acid we require 4 ATPs and GTPs. Okay, one amino acid formation synthesis require 4 ATPs and GTPs. Okay, that's great. Here's the question for you. How many ATPs and GTPs are required to synthesize the 16 amino acid? Hope you will give me the correct answer. That's all for today. Subscribe to our channel, press the bell icon if you want to get the notification of all the videos, and keep liking the video, sharing, and subscribe to our channel definitely. But do take care of yourself, as the corona is going to be worse soon. I hope it won't get worse. It will be prevented soon. Okay, ta-da, bye bye, take care.